This one very small, very minuscule change was the reason why my ROAS has basically gone through the roof, not only for my own e-commerce brand, but also one of my clients under my Google Ads agency, Euro Marketing. And as you see on my screen, right here is my own e-commerce store, which is kind of running on the sidelines. But this one specific change, which I'm going to be going over in this video, was done on the 8th of June. And I'm recording this video on the 22nd of June. So this time frame we're looking at is June 9th all the way up to June 22. And most important of all, I'm actually comparing this period to the previous time period to show you the exact ROAS boost I have been able to achieve with this one simple change. And as you can see right here, within this time period, there has been a 53% increase in ROAS. Now, you might be saying that because the ad spend is not too much for this ad account, again, because this specific brand is kind of running on the sidelines, we're gonna go over to one of my own e-commerce clients brands, which I personally run ads for under my agency Euro Marketing. And we're gonna look at that same change and that same kind of results happening yet again. So during this time period, as you can see, in the early months of June, because of what has started to go on in the world, the ROAS had slightly dipped for this brand. Previously, I was running on a 2x to a 3x ROAS consistently, but unfortunately, when June came about, the ROAS did dip. But as we can see, the yellow line is the ROAS line, and consistently, it has not been too much of a great line so far. There have been a lot of ups and downs, but during this time period is when I went ahead and made that same specific change, which I made on my own e-commerce brand as well, and you can see the result. Not only did the cost drop significantly, but also the ROAS went from basically just around a 1x, 1.5x, 2x to consistently a 2x and above. In fact, there was one day when we got a 6x ROAS. And these numbers are something we're enjoying even with the current downturn of the economy. So there was only one specific change I made with both of these accounts, which resulted in this. Again, I can go on with account after account showing you this happening on them regardless of niche or industry, because this trick, which I'm about to tell you, just ends up working. And of course, one thing you want to understand is when you do apply this trick, you are going to end up having a lower ad spend for a small period of time. But as you can see with this ad account right here, the ad spend is starting to increase in the recent time periods, and the ROAS, best part of all, is starting to stabilize as well, which is what you should expect after that initial time period. And that specific change, which I'm referring to with both of these accounts, is no other change than putting a target ROAS percentage on the smart shopping campaigns. Now, what do I mean by this exactly? It's not really as easy as you might think. So before I actually cover the target ROAS percentage, what exactly I put for the target ROAS, it's important to understand why this is one of my newest findings and why it kind of goes against a lot of the things which I used to always recommend on my previous YouTube videos. Now, setting a target ROAS is basically like you telling Google to stop using its powerful algorithm and to now follow more of your directions. And as you can see, this might be counterintuitive in a lot of different situations, simply because a smart shopping campaign, or nowadays a performance max campaign, the main goal is for that campaign to optimize based on the data the algorithm is gathering, and then get your results based off of that data that it keeps on getting. And it's only really possible when you set no barriers and no restrictions on that smart shopping campaign. This is what I used to recommend always beforehand, where if you wanted to scale a smart shopping campaign, all you had to do was uncheck the target ROAS box, or if you were starting a brand new smart shopping campaign, you wanted to start it with no target ROAS percentage chosen. And this would work about 99% of the times. But unfortunately, with the recent changes Google Ads came about with, this has completely changed. And I personally believe that the main reason why this strategy really no longer works is simply because Google's algorithm is dealing with so many different things going on at the same time, meaning the update after update, and also nowadays Shopify's updates themselves, that it's having a bit of trouble understanding what kind of audiences to really go out after and also optimize at the same time. Because again, every single second, every single minute, the algorithm is becoming smarter for all of the Google Ads advertisers. So because of that, in the recent time periods, it really doesn't make sense to continue running it on no target ROAS percentage checked, because it is just not optimizing as quickly enough. So that's one of the biggest reasons as to why what I used to recommend, especially with a campaign that's already been running for a while and just unchecking it, no longer works. I'm gonna get to that strategy about launching new smart shopping campaigns with no target ROAS percentage checked in just a minute. But let's go inside one of my main smart shopping campaigns for my own e-commerce brand, go to settings, and we can see exactly what the target ROAS percentage currently is. And the percentage is a 307%. Now, don't ask me where I got this number from. It was basically a random number. I like to kind of play around between 295% and 310%. And I, of course, like to kind of use numbers which are odd numbers and which are random numbers. So instead of just doing 300% and be boring, I kind of made it just a little bit extra just so Google knows exactly what I want, and it's not exactly at that bare minimum number of 300%. So what my recommendation to you is, if you decide to do this, is to set a target ROAS percentage that's a little bit above what you really want to achieve or what the campaign has really been achieving. So for example, if we go on over to the overview section and change the time period to now about the last 30 days, we can see exactly how this campaign has been performing. So regardless of whether I said that 300% or not, this campaign overall has been performing very well. It has gotten days when the ROAS has been all the way up to a 22x, and of course there were other days when the ROAS was not so good. But on average, I did notice before that time period of June 8 and 9, which is when I decided to do that change, if we look all the way from May 1st to June 7th, we can see that even during that time period, the ROAS was well above a 300%. In fact, it was a 400%, but I did still decide to kind of go down just a bit and not set it at exactly 400%. So what I'm trying to say is, if your last 30 days, last 60 days average ROAS is a 1.5, don't go in and try to set the ROAS at a 300%, because it's really not going to work. You want to kind of be around the range which your campaign is already hitting. So for instance, if you're not really profitable at maybe a 1.5x ROAS on average, set the target ROAS percentage to maybe a 200% or maybe a 190% or so forth. Start around that range of where you already are instead of trying to reach way too high, because again, this is not magic. There's not going to be some magic trick happening in the back end once you decide to set a target ROAS. So you want to kind of take things simple, just set one general target ROAS percentage, which is around, again, what you're already getting, plus or minus 10-20%, and then just go ahead and let it run for that time period. So now what I did is I did let that run for a certain period of time, and if we look at the data on a weekly basis, we can see exactly what's happening since May 1st to right now, which is June 22nd. Overall, it has been stabilizing during this time period. There's a lot of weeks when the overall ROAS is much higher. So that's exactly what I want to see. And now if I want to take things up a notch, here's what I would do. I would go in and I would change this target ROAS from 307% to maybe 350%, because I want to either increase or decrease the ROAS by plus minus 50%, which is 0.5, based on how the overall results are. Obviously, this campaign is doing well. It's spending its entire budget, so I want to kind of take things up a notch and increase my profitability. But you only want to be doing this if the campaign profitability is there. And of course, the campaign budget is fully getting spent. So if your budget is right now $100 a day and you are getting this ROAS, but your ad spend is really about $50 to $60 a day, you do not want to go in and increase this, because then that ad spend is going to drop from $50 to $60 a day to maybe 30 or 40. And that's simply because you are increasing your restrictions on the ROAS. You're telling Google to go out and find a higher quality audience. Oftentimes, this means Google will try to spend less and it will not even be able to find all of the real audience with that entire budget which you have set. So you want to kind of play things safe. You want to basically know that you are going to be sacrificing one thing or another when you're trying to scale a smart shopping campaign. So if you want to continue getting that revenue, maybe even increase that sales and revenue number, then you would actually decrease this by 20% to 30%. So let's say my budget was only about $40 to $50 ad spend a day and my real budget was $70 a day. Obviously, it's not spending the whole thing every day. So what I would do is I would come in, I would lower this from 307% to maybe 250%, 260%, etc. And then I would wait 7 to 14 days to see how things perform. Obviously, when I do this change, my ad spend is going to increase, but I want to make sure my ROAS is not too negative negatively affected, because again, nobody wants to sacrifice their ROAS heavily just for revenue. At least I hope not. But make sure again that you are making those changes on a very small level. Don't make it too big where you go from 300% to 500%, because then there's a very good chance that that campaign might end up getting fully destroyed. So you want to kind of take things easy. But now going back to what I was originally saying about my original strategies and why this is so different is because with a smart shopping campaign, when you launch a brand new smart shopping campaign for any given product, you still want to run it without any target ROAS percentage checked. And here's exactly why. Especially if your account is brand new, if you're just starting smart shopping campaigns on that account, or even if you have already used smart shopping campaigns and this campaign that you're launching, that's the only new smart shopping campaign you're just about to launch. You want to give Google in the beginning a little bit of extra room, a little bit of extra leeway to go out and find the right kind of audience and the right kind of buyer. Because if you kind of limit it severely, what's going to happen is right from the beginning, it's not really going to know exactly what is the right audience member, what is the right demographic of the person you're trying to target, and all of these additional issues. Obviously, what that is going to lead to is a very limited campaign with very limited data, and as a result, very limited sales. So in the beginning, here is what I like to do. You can kind of think of this as a funnel of smart shopping campaigns. And by the way, you want to follow this strategy for Performance Max campaigns as well. Start off any brand new smart shopping campaign, Performance Max campaign, with no target ROAS percentage checked. For a smart shopping campaign, wait about 15 to 20 days before actually deciding whether you want to set a target ROAS percentage or not. And for a Performance Max campaign, wait about 30 days. You want to give it ample amounts of room to, of course, get enough data, understand who your audience is, what your products are, and then actually get sales for those products. You still want to be optimizing your campaigns, by the way, through other means, and you can watch my videos on how to do that. But for a lot of my clients, brands under my agency, Your Marketing, which if you're doing $30,000 or more in sales, you need some extra help scaling it to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and book a free call with me to see how we can possibly work together to make that happen. But for these kinds of brands, I'm always waiting about 14 to maybe even 20 days for a smart shopping campaign and then deciding whether I want to set a target ROAS percentage or not. And that is going to entirely be based on results. I really only do this if the results are not there, because obviously if it's getting like a 5x, 10x ROAS or any number above what you want to get, there's no reason for you to set a target ROAS percentage. On the other hand, for a Performance Max campaign, I just let it run for about 30 days. I optimize that Performance Max campaign as needed, and then I decide what needs to be done. In most cases, again, I will go in and I will set a target ROAS percentage if that Performance Max campaign is not working up to the level I want it to work at. But this strategy just works simply because once your campaign has enough data, whether it's a brand new smart campaign or just a one that's been running for a while, you can then use that data to your advantage by then giving Google stricter measures to work off of. And because Google already knows what kind of people are within that ROAS percentage range that you just gave it, for example, 300%, it's gonna go out and try to show your ad more to those people. But of course, you need enough sales before, and I recommend about 25 to 50 sales or above to have this really work for you. And once you set this target ROAS percentage, what's going to happen in the back end is Google is going to increase its bar of who the ideal audience member is again, and it's going to only enter auctions for those audience members which it highly thinks are gonna purchase from you. So if there's even a little bit of a doubt that this person does not fall within that 300% range or above, Google will not even try to rank for that auction, and Google will not try to win that potential customer over. That's just how the algorithm works in the back end. But this kind of brings me to the next part of the video, which is what is the long-term sustainability of a strategy like this, and is there any type of long-term potential of growth with setting a target ROAS percentage? And to answer that question, I'm going to be taking you inside another ad account, which is also my client's e-commerce brand account under my agency. We're going to look at what is happening over here. So for this brand, specifically for this first smart shopping campaign, a target ROAS was set a long time ago before we actually even came into the picture. So we can see when that was actually set by looking at this drop in overall ad spend right here. As you can see, from April 8th to April 10th, things kind of took a deep dive downwards. But the main thing is, before that, the results were not really accurate. These numbers are not fully accurate. The sales weren't really there at that time period. But when the ad spend dropped significantly during this time, the ROAS did start to go higher much more, and the overall lows became lower. Meaning if before the low was maybe like a 3.16 ROAS, here the lows were much higher than before. So of course there are still times when it goes a little bit lower than that, but if we look at the broader picture right over here, we can see that the ROAS in the recent time periods has become much more stable. And again, these numbers are much lower in reality, simply because the conversion tracking codes and everything were not properly set up for this brand earlier. So for 2 months fully, this campaign right here has been running on a set target ROAS percentage, but this account goes to the extreme with that target ROAS percentage, because the ROAS here is well above 400%. If we go into the settings, we can see exactly what the target ROAS percentage is for this account, and it's a 485%. Obviously that is hampering the scale of this account, because in the recent time periods, if we look at the cost, we can see that it's barely spending any amounts of budget compared to what the overall total budget is. So for example, it's spending about $20 to $15, $18 a day, when the real budget it should spend is $150. So that's really what's going on with this account. Unfortunately for this e-commerce brand, their break-even ROAS is about a 4 to a 4.5x, very high break-even ROAS, and that's one main reason why the account has not fully been able to be scaled as of yet. But still, right now with these numbers, it's very profitable, it's going as planned, and the main goal is to kind of lower the target ROAS percentage over time so that growth can really be achieved. But to answer that question again, long-term sustainability depends on what target ROAS percentage you set. You definitely don't want to be going too much into the extremes, because that is gonna 100% lower your ability to scale. But for anybody right now who's really struggling to get any kinds of good results from Smart Shopping campaign, or with the recent time period their results have dropped, I highly recommend you start setting a target ROAS percentage for your Smart Shopping campaign or Performance Max campaign, especially if it's been running for a while, to really kind of get that campaign to work on the level you want it to work at, instead of just being okay with the ups and downs and the lows of that Smart Shopping campaign. Because again, if you don't step in, Google is just gonna assume everything is good, the results are good, and it's still gonna try to optimize for that audience the same way. But if you step in, if you change up the target ROAS only for a few days and then you change it back to no target ROAS, even that small boost in overall results is gonna give Google the data it needs to then optimize for that audience, even after you get rid of the target ROAS percentage once again. But again, if you're doing over $30,000 in sales or more and you need some help scaling your e-commerce brand to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and book a free call with me to see how we can make that happen. But if you found any type of value in this video, destroy that like button and destroy that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video.